In 2001, Six Flags bought 4 Vekoma Giant Inverted Boomerangs for their parks. This was a supersized inverted variant of the Vekoma Boomerang. One of them was Deja Vu at Six Flags Magic Mountain. This coaster would be praised for its intensity while in California, but after it was relocated to Six Flags New England, the coaster became one of the world's worst roller coasters. Not only did this ride cause major headbanging, it also struggled to stay open consistently. It got so bad that the coaster closed forever in 2019. How did Deja Vu go from gold to dog crap as Goliath? This is why Goliath turned into a dumpster fire. After collaborating with Aerodynamics, Dutch manufacturer Vekoma was looking to create an identity of its own. Under Aero, Vekoma previously worked on the MK1200. This is pretty much Vekoma's version of the Aero Looper, which means it's boring and it sucked. Like really bad. But Vekoma wanted something they could hold to of its own. So in 1984, Vekoma created the Boomerang. The Boomerang is a shuttle coaster with a couple of inversions. How the Boomerang works is that a catch car lifts the train backwards up a slanted spike. Once the catch car releases, the train dives down the spike and traverses both a cobra roll and a vertical loop. Then you climb up another slanted spike and reach the chain lift. Once you reach the top, you traverse the entire layout backwards into the station. Now Vekoma Boomerangs are very shit rides due to their poor track work and horrible restraints. This means it treated riders the same way that one weird uncle treats you in his white van, which I guess sounds right considering this is pre-2008 Vekoma we're talking about. However, despite its poor reputation, Vekoma managed to sell 55 Boomerangs. This is due to its marketability, small footprint, and low cost. Vekoma would be known for low cost, clonable coasters that ran like shit. However, Vekoma's luck tanked as the coaster evolution progressed into the future. Now, I previously made a dedicated video on Vekoma, link in the description. In summary, newer and better coaster models took off in the late 90s and 2000s, leaving Vekoma behind with its outdated models. To catch up, Vekoma attempted to innovate with new concepts, but in this case, they would be redesigning the Boomerangs. This redesign would be the Invertigos. This was essentially an inverted boomerang where the trains hung under the track. Even though all Vekoma did was flip the track, Invertigos suffered many problems. Only 4 were ever produced, and the problems range from technical issues and high maintenance to a hydraulic fluid leakage. However, despite the issues with the Invertigos, Vekoma scaled the Boomerangs again to a whole new level. In 2001, Vekoma debuted the Giant Inverted Boomerangs. This was basically an Invertigo if they supersized it to nearly hyper heights. Vekoma made a few differences from the Invertigos. The first is that the 2 spikes would be vertical spikes that uses a catch car. Second, the trains are set up in a V shape. The width of the train is 4 across. The 2 middle seats are positioned as normal. However, the 2 outer seats are pushed back, making that staggered design. And third, the layout would cross over itself, with the vertical loop taking place over the station. The layout would consist of the following. Passengers board the 32-rider trains and pull down the over-the-shoulder restraints. But it's worth noting that the Giant Inverted Boomerangs have 2 different seat belts. One across the rider's lap and another that connects the restraints to the seat. Complete overkill if you ask me. The ride begins with a hoist backwards up the vertical spike via a catch car. You climb up 177 feet, 54 meters in the vertical position. Not necessarily the same position a prisoner would be if they dropped the soap. Once you reach the top, the catch car releases, plunging riders 90 degrees. Once you pull out, you fly through the station at 65 miles per hour or 105 kilometers per hour. Once you fly through, you traverse a massive cobra roll. Then you head into a tall vertical loop. Then you head into a second vertical spike and catch onto the catch car. Once you reach the top, the catch car releases you to traverse the entire layout again backwards into the station. This completes 1,204 feet, 367 meters of track in both directions. Now, unlike the original Boomerangs or even the Invertigos, the Giant Inverted Boomerangs are praised as solid rides. This is because of how intense these Boomerangs are and their smoothness. The latter is kinda shocking considering this is the hand of old Vekoma. This is the same company that previously made coasters that recreates getting jumped by the cartel. Now, please keep in mind that they are still using over-the-shoulder restraints. And with the intensity, this means you are still susceptible to headbanging. This is the reason why a lot of that people don't like over-the-shoulder restraints, because it's a lot easier for riders to come off with a headache versus a lap bar, but it's easy to avoid it here by leaning forwards. If you rode it properly, you got a great intense coaster. Six Flags clearly saw the market appeal and immediately bought 4 prototypes. These would be Deja Vu at Six Flags Great America, Over Georgia, and Magic Mountain, and also Stuntfall at Warner Bros. Park Madrid. The latter, now known as Parque Warner Madrid, was run by Six Flags at the time. The Deja Vus were meant to be ready for the 2001 season and Stuntfall with the park's opening. However, all of them would experience major technical issues. Embarrassingly, all those boomerangs would be delayed for months. But why? The issue was that the giant inverted boomerangs had a lot of mechanical and technical issues. It's not exactly clear what the main culprit was. However, it's widely speculated that the culprit was the complex catch car system. Unlike the other boomerangs where the second spike uses a chain lift, the giant inverted boomerangs use a complex catch car system. To gain enough speed to traverse the layout backwards, the catch car grabs the train while in motion and hoists it to the top. The problem is that the catch car has to already be in motion while grabbing the train at high speeds. If the catch car is out of sync, the ride could trigger a fault and shut down. Because of this, the giant inverted boomerangs were delayed due to extended testing and maintenance. During testing, it was discovered that riders could actually touch the track. To rectify this, Six Flags modified the restraints to prevent this and enforced a maximum height limit of 76 inches. Anyone taller would be unable to ride, so if you're over 6'4", these rides turn into a safety hazard. Then the catch car on Deja Vu at Six Flags Over Georgia derailed. This damaged the train beyond repair and forced them to order another one. After months of analyzed construction, the first to open was Deja Vu at Six Flags Magic Mountain in August 2001. This would be followed by Deja Vu at Six Flags Over Georgia in September, and later, Deja Vu at Six Flags Great America that October. But no matter which one you rode, the ride experience remained the same. At Magic Mountain, Deja Vu was praised for reasons we already discussed earlier. Guests stated that the ride was very intense while still being smooth by old Vekoma standards. But despite positive reviews, the maintenance side was more messy than the drug bust in the hood. Throughout its run at the American Six Flags parks, the prototype model suffered multiple technical difficulties. A lot of the times, these coasters would be closed reportedly due to programming issues. Also, this coaster had a major valleying issues at the Cobra Roll, so they installed a staircase and evac platform for easy evacuations. Except even that was a problem because the trains didn't have a manual quick release system for the restraints. Instead, a battery pack was needed to unlock each one. This meant evacs took way longer than they should. These issues resulted in an absurd amount of downtime for the Deja Vus. Meanwhile, Stuntfall would be delayed 4 months after the park opened, but because that ride opened a year later, they had more time to iron out the wrinkles. As a result, Stuntfall remains operational today, but the same could not be said for the American Boomerangs. They ended up being reliability nightmares for the respective parks. On top of that, then CEO Mark Shapiro wanted to focus more on families and less on thrill rides. These factors led to the decision to remove Over Georgia's and Great America's Deja Vus during the 2007 season. Both coasters were relocated to other parks and their plot of land has since been taken up by kiddie rides. Meanwhile, Deja Vu at Magic Mountain was still going strong, but Deja Vu wouldn't last much longer. That clone closed in October 2011. Like the other clones, this one was also relocated, but its new home would be quite the weird one. In 2012, it was discovered that Magic Mountain's Deja Vu was getting sent to Six Flags New England in Massachusetts. The plan was to reopen it there and rename it Goliath. This was extremely unorthodox for 2 reasons. The first is that the Deja Vus were very finicky when it comes to shitty weather. It is unable to run in rain, speeds exceeding 25 miles per hour or 40 kilometers per hour, or temperatures below 60 degrees Fahrenheit or 15 degrees Celsius. This is because the catch car is prone to slipping in severe weather, which would lead to the train valleying. And cold weather where your balls could freeze off happens a lot at Six Flags New England. So by default, Goliath would be closed more there than at Magic Mountain. The second reason, which still shocks everyone, is that they already have a Vekoma Boomerang. This is Flashback, a traditional boomerang they added in 2000. To make things even weirder, they placed Goliath right next to Flashback. It's almost as if New England was tripping balls from the many acid tabs they tripped on, realized Flashback was a good ride from the acid tabs, and decided another boomerang was a good idea. So Deja Vu closed at Magic Mountain in October 2011. Then the coaster was shipped across the country and eventually reopened as Goliath in May 2012. But when When Goliath made it to New England, Six Flags performed one major change: the trains. As I said before, the original Vekoma trains are staggered V-shaped trains. However, this caused quite the confusion when boarding. How boarding is supposed to work is this: 2 guests from the odd number rows board the middle seats. Then 1 guest from the even numbered rows squeezes past the middle seats to get to the outer seat on the opposite side. Then another guest from an even numbered row would sit in the other outer seat. The issue is that because you have to pass the middle seats to get to the outer ones, riders would honestly think those 4 seats would be for the same row. This would lead to a lot of confusion on how to board and even accidental line cutting. Plus, as I mentioned, Deja Vu had 2 different seat belts that needed to be fastened. This made dispatches take longer than intended. To cut down on this confusion, Six Flags bought brand new inverted trains from Premier Rides? I'm sorry, riders?
Was good.
Is this facts true? Cause this cannot be real.
Yeah, that's indeed correct.
What? Okay, Six Flags New England had to have been baked as fuck from 6 bags of grass while on their acid trip. Cause who on earth thought getting premier trains for a Vekoma coaster was a good idea? That might honestly be worse than Zamperla redoing Top Thrill Dragster. That coaster is one massive nightmare of a fever dream. For one, Premier, frankly, does not know how to make quality trains. I would know because I've ridden 5 Premier coasters. Pretty much all of Premier's ride vehicles suck major balls, mostly due to lack of room. Second, Premier has never done an inverted coaster, which naturally means they've never done an inverted coaster train before. But Six Flags gave the go-ahead and ordered new Premier trains for Goliath. These would be the standard 4-across trains that only use 1 seatbelt, similar to B&M inverts. In theory, this would lead to less confusion and faster operations, except those new trains got delayed due to fabrication delays. As a result, Goliath had to reopen with the original Vekoma trains. When Goliath opened in 2012, it was still received as well as it was back in California. Many guests enjoyed the high positive G-forces while still being a comfortable attraction. Unfortunately, it wouldn't stay comfortable for long. Shortly thereafter, the Premier trains were finished and placed on this coaster, and that was the moment this coaster turned into a dumpster fire. Almost immediately, Goliath was lambasted for its horrible ride experience. The issue was that the trains did not ride well on the track for whatever reason. This led to the train violently shaking riders on the track. The bumpy and uncomfortable ride led riders to bang their heads, almost as if you got attacked by some crazy lunatic in the middle of nowhere, New Mexico. This is already problematic because the layout is very G-force heavy, which could exacerbate the roughness. To make matters worse, Goliath's new train still had over-the-shoulder restraints. On the original Vekoma trains, if you leaned forwards, you can reduce your chances of head bashing. However, the restraints here are Premier's skyrocket lap bars glued to thicker shoulder harnesses that more or less resembles black bricks. And no, not the racist kind you might find dumpster diving. These restraints exacerbate the pain much more as they make it harder to avoid headaches on the already rough track. If you wore earrings or sunglasses, your ears would take more blunt force damage. It was very common for riders to come out and walk off with red ears and migraine headaches. So basically, Goliath would give you a 10XL hangover similar to a 5-gallon blackout at a Mexican party. To make matters worse, that's not the only place that guests can take Minecraft heart damage. Yeah, that's right, there is more than one spot of pain. The skyrocket lap bars can crush both your thighs and your nuts in the valleys. Yeah, I didn't even know it can do that until recently. So not only are you getting assaulted with a metal stick, your balls are being pelted with more bricks and your thighs are being slammed with metal plates. Then the only smooth row is the front, as the further back you go, the rougher the ride is. To add literal insult to injury, Six Flags New England did not allow you to pick your own row, so you only had a 1 in 8 chance of not getting concussed. These comfort issues led to the train being one of the most hated on any coaster. By contrast, the other giant inverted boomerangs still use the original Vekoma trains, and those are still receiving high ridership for their high quality rides. If that wasn't bad enough, it was even more of a maintenance nightmare during its run in Massachusetts. In general, Six Flags New England doesn't exactly have the best track record when it comes to maintenance, and with the harsher weather, trying to get this piece of shit running was a major challenge. A big example of this was an accident in July 2016, where a lift cable snapped. This shut down the ride for a while, and while it did eventually reopen, it was clear clear, Goliath was a total nightmare. Over the years, Goliath would regularly face downtime. Heck, sometimes the ride would be closed for months. That's something only the most problematic of attractions can accomplish. And no, that is not a compliment. I'm saying you coasters are the butt of jokes and need to go to therapy. During these long closures, a sign would be placed outside the attraction, stating the ride was a revolutionary coaster that suffers many issues that they're trying to resolve. With Goliath constantly closed, park guests were regularly frustrated at the attraction, but most of them don't realize that closed sign was actually a blessing in disguise. They were spared from the concussions they could have got, so no matter what you chose, it's pretty much a lose-lose situation. This is the nightmare scenario that no park ever wants. No one wants a ride that's both hated and closed with a high maintenance cost. No matter where you stand on it, it's basically the equivalent of finding out you're in the sped class. Heck no, screw this class, I'm out of here. At that point, you're basically telling the coaster to shut up and take my money. Cause why the fuck would anyone willingly choose to keep it? The unlucky few who got to ride it claimed it was one of the worst coasters in the world. Even worse than the SLC Riddler's Revenge, then known as Mind Eraser. You know you're unpopular when the SLC, even before the retheme, beats you in quality. By 2019, the park likely got fed up with Goliath's problems and decided enough was enough. Many guests wondered why this coaster hasn't ended up in the dumpster yet. Even before the pandemic, there were already rumors of the coaster's demise. Then the coaster closed in the fall of 2019. Now, it's not uncommon for this coaster to close at this time. Remember, Six Flags New England gets cold as shit, so Goliath doesn't even run at the end of the season. Plus, Six Flags New England has an off season where they're closed 4 months out of the year. But then 2020 happened, and we all know what happened that year. It was essentially one giant fever dream of a disaster. And of course, Six Flags New England didn't open at all that year, but the park fully reopened the following year in 2021. But one thing remained closed: Goliath. The coaster pretty much sat dormant with no activity in sight. To most people, this was all but guaranteed the ride would soon be removed. I mean, most people already forgot Goliath was there. This was definitely the case when the park removed both the sign and ride off the park map. Usually when parks do that, they're the confirmation of the ride's demise without actually telling us that. The interesting thing was that Six Flags never made a formal announcement about it. It was actually discovered on a fan site that the coaster was being demolished in January 2022. This coaster was literally discarded without any fanfare. Later on, it was revealed the coaster was sold for scrap metal, reduced to a pile of green and blue metal junk. It did take a while for a replacement to come, but it will be coming in the form of Quantum Accelerator for 2025. This will be an intimate straddle coaster similar to rides like Wavebreaker or Juvalin, featuring many low-to-the-ground twists and turns that are sure to be fun for the whole family. Whether you think intimate straddles are good or not, I'll leave up to you. But most of us can agree that except for Moto Coaster at Dreamworld, the straddles are much better than Goliath. The funny part is that Flashback next door ended up outlasting Goliath, and it remains in operation today. While some are glad this coaster is no more, it's actually kinda sad when you think about it. The once great and mighty Deja Vu in California turned into a literal piece of dog shit. In an effort to improve dispatches and boarding, Six Flags ended up killing the coaster altogether. The crazy part is that all of this could have been avoided. All they'd really need to do is reconfigure the queue line. Instead of one row for the middle and one for the outer, they could have made one row that accesses all 4 seats across with 8 rows total. That way confusion would be cut, as you now have access to both the inner and outer seats from the same row. However, their poor decision making led to Goliath to be a massive failure of a dumpster fire for the park, and this is why Goliath is considered to be one massive failure. As for the other giant inverted boomerangs, Six Flags Over Georgia's Deja Vu is currently sitting in storage in Brazil because, for whatever reason, those parks down there struggle to open new rides. But Deja Vu from Great America was sent to Silverwood in Idaho, a place surrounded by potatoes and illegal activity, and that, along with Stuntfall, still operates today. This includes 2 other giant inverted boomerangs Vekoma installed a decade after the initial prototypes: Giant Inverted Boomerang at Jijiang Action Park in China and Quantum Leap at Sochi Park in Russia. However, none have been built since, and it seems Vekoma has since discontinued the product. This is likely due to Vekoma shifting its focus from garbage to world-class attractions. Gone are the days of SLCs and boomerangs, and now are high-quality coasters with their new track and trains. But their first new-gen coasters had a very rough start. Their first coaster with the new track and trains was Stingray at Ferris Wheel Park in China. This was Vekoma's new take on the flying coaster. Vekoma previously debuted the flying coaster coaster around the same time the Deja Vus opened. However, like those, the Flying Dutchman was a mechanical nightmare due to complications related to the trains. This coaster would feature Vekoma's new track and new vest restraints. However, Stingray suffered a lot of issues and ended up closing less than a decade after it opened. Currently, it's sitting in pieces in storage in the dirty slums of South India. Why did Vekoma's first attempt at change fail so hard? Well, that is a story for another day. Thank you all so much for watching this video. This video is part of Ride Analyze, where we dive into roller coasters and other amusement rides history and dynamics. Since you made it to the end like the absolute G's you are, why don't you do these checkpoints shown on screen? Mainly, press both the like and subscribe button. That way, it convinces the YouTube algorithm to push this content to more viewers. And we have even more content coming to my TikTok and Instagram accounts, so you should give me a follow over there. Finally, watch some other content I made because it's that good. This is the Coaster Flood, riding out.